Hey, what's up, YouTube? Welcome to Play It Painted Live. Hope you guys are having a fantastic Christmas evening. Christmas Eve. We're going to do some painting here, because why the hell not? Kids are supposed to be asleep. We'll see how this goes. But yeah, kids are supposed to be asleep. Had a very, very full day. We've got another super full day ahead of us tomorrow. So tonight we're gonna paint some more God tier. I'm just gonna change the name of this stream to Christmas Eve painting stream. How about that? All right. Anyways, we'll go ahead and change that to that. And first off, want to say Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Festivus, all that other stuff. You know, whatever the hell is your reason for celebrating, at least for having a little bit of time off work, I hope. I'm going to change some of this other stuff here before we move on. This is not going to be gaming. This is going to be... it's none of these. It's none of these. It's still going to be gaming, but I'm going to call this God tier. There we go. It didn't like my did not like me calling it God tier. Anyways, I'm gonna open up the comment section right now. Once again, Merry Christmas, everybody, and we're just gonna get into it. So we're gonna show you what we are painting. Last night we finished the Cult of Dual Wield, and I had a little bit of extra time today between the festivities to get the next warband going, okay? And I don't remember the name of the next warband, but it's got this dope chick, this elf with a bow who is in progress right now. So you can see, putting in some work on her. And she is I'm kind of using her as the template for the rest of the warband. But she is super cool, great pose. You can see how cool that armor is. It's like a crystalline scale mail that she has. And then she's got a lot of gold. So I'm kind of going the opposite direction with her as I am with Finvar, because Finvar last night was a winter theme, and this is going to be like a summer / autumn theme. So a lot of warm colors on this color palette, and you can see her well underway here, and she's standing on those cool ruins. And I may do some work on the minions. These are the elf minions, but I think for right now anyways, we're just gonna kind of hammer out the work on her, and we're gonna bounce around on the minions as appropriate, I suppose, right? But yeah, that's that's how she's doing so far. And we're gonna shade down the ruins there. Then we're going to so we're gonna start color blocking the base. Okay, so that's what we got underway for tonight, and then it's gonna be a lot of detail work and highlighting and stuff to get her where she needs to be. But she's looking pretty good. I really having so much fun painting what I consider to be like really nice looking elf miniatures. I always felt with GW, I always played the elf factions in those games, but they never felt uh, they never. I guess I always felt like it was settling. The aesthetic was never quite what I wanted out of an elf aesthetic. So take that for what you will, and let's just go ahead and get started with the painting here. So I'm gonna hit this the entire ruins with this Basilicanum Gray, right? Because we're just gonna do that. It's really just basilicanum gray and like a highlight, if that. It should actually look pretty good without the highlight, but it's always nice to do that just as a, um, just that teeny little bit of extra uh, interest you could draw to the model by doing that. All right. So we'll get this going. So if you're just joining us, welcome to Play It Painted Live. Merry Christmas, everybody. Let us know what you're painting and what you should be painting. Tonight we're painting this absolutely gorgeous God tier model. Okay. I don't know. I've never had much for brunettes, but I do like her. She's fantastic. All right. We also, so we're gonna go with a pretty um, lush green on the base. Again, we're going for more of a like a summer feel here. I may go back and hit it with some light patches of like a tan color afterward, but I don't know. We'll just decide that when it happens, okay? Oh man, I keep forgetting to fill my water. I may actually have to get up in the middle of this stream and do it if I physically run out of water. But right now, let's get this green color down. So you can see it's a really light, it's a lighter green color. I'm just gonna let that soak in. It's pretty dope. Like that green. It's a nice green. You can see how the pumice really kind of just builds up to the ruin really nicely and just provides you a nice continuous base here instead of the ruins just kind of flattening out to nothing. You get a nice little scenic base out of it. Oops, there's a spot there I did not hit with the basilicanum gray, so we'll work on that too. All right, so let that dry. Let's get some basilicanum gray down into that area there. All right, all right. I'm gonna let that dry for a bit. And let's, like I said, oh, you know what I need to do? I need to do a little bit of work on Finvar's sword while I got this drawing. So Finvar's sword is kind of disappointing, as you can see. It just does not look very good at all. Um, and I was going to use Basilicanum Gray, but I don't think that's the right move here. We're going to go with Armor Wash instead. Armor Wash is going to cause it to go from lighter to darker a little more drastically. And I think I need to do that. It's just a shame that you've got a sword this big and they really didn't craft the details well on it. You know? They really didn't. You can see the detail with the way the liquid's running on it. The detail is not well defined. It's kind of bouncing off the blade there. It does not look sharp or flat. There isn't even a good guide. You know, there isn't a good leading edge there on that blade. So this was disappointing. You know, it's not a bad sculpt by any stretch of the term, but it's not. I think it fails to meet expectations. Just that sword doesn't have enough. It does not have enough detail on it, and it's just not remarkable. I guess my recourse is to, maybe I should just paint it super dark with the armor wash, Just leave it dark on the blade. It just doesn't look good. It doesn't look sharp. It's better. It's more defined on that side than this side, and this is the leading side, right? This is where you're going to take the picture of the model. All right. So I'm going to do that and try to get some kind of gradient out of it, and I can't. I think I just have to let it. I just have to let it darken up and do its own thing there on the bottom of the blade. It's just gonna look like it looks like a stone blade. It just doesn't look. And it just doesn't look good. No matter how you cut it or blade or fade it, it does not look like a good blade. Sorry, Finvar. The blade just looks like trash, dude. Yeah, that's a shame. I mean, it's got some definition on this side, but like nothing on that side. All right. Poor dude. Okay. So while our champ here is drying, we're going to start to block out hair. And what I really need to block out is the orange on these sculpts. So this layer here will be orange, and then I don't know if this very bottom one will be white, or if I do it the other way around, this will be white and that'll be orange. I think it's better if this is orange and that's either white or it's also orange. I don't know yet. We'll play around with that. I got a cat yelling at me. Let's let that cat in real quick. You want in? Come on. All right. So we'll see how we're doing here. I just do not have any room left on this table. There's just too much junk on this table. It's really kind of a nightmare. All right. So we're going to go with this Griffhound Orange. It's a really nice color. And we're just going to keep blocking these off. See how far we can get on this crew tonight. This is a more detailed crew than the Church of Dual Wield. So I'm not expecting that we're going to finish these. Not even like by a long shot we will. Because they're just more delicate. They demand a little more attention. Right? Because I got to go in and highlight the green on the tabards here. This unit is basically just an artillery unit in God tier, though. They're not the most interesting unit of minions to play. But man, do they ever look cool. If you ask me, that's a very, very cool looking minion. All right. Turn that off for a minute. I didn't realize I had that on still. Anyway. So yeah. But we will punch these up quite a bit so that they look fantastic. I'm pretty excited about these. These are some of the best elf sculpts I've seen in a long time. And when I do paint fantasy, elves are one of my favorite races to paint because they're just very interesting. All right. So we're just gonna block these out, man. They're gonna look great, I think. So we might be in for a very quiet evening, which is fine. We'll let this go. I don't know. We'll go about an hour. Or if it's just still too quiet in like 30 minutes, I'll shut it down. We'll get to a good point painting wise though, either way. So you can see how, at least how most of this is going to shape up. All right. The other thing that really should be orange is the quiver. The top of the quiver here should look orange because we're going with like orange feathers on these guys. Oh man, looks like I wasn't the most consistent about how these color schemes are gonna go. Oh gosh, that's annoying. Okay, real sinewy arm there from that dude. So some more orange this way. Again with the missing spots. Okay. Let's get a little warp green where we want it. A little bit of warp green right here. Just there so you can't tell. Right. Just there. Anything else that's like totally missing? This should be warp green right here. And that should be yellow back there. Or just keep rocking it out, man. Also, think I think I want two of these to be blonde. I want two of these guys to be blonde. Oh man. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe Christmas isn't the best time to be to be painting because I seem to be missing a lot of stuff. It looks like she's getting a lot closer to being done, so that's good. All right. Maybe we can do, let's do one more thing with this yellow before switching back to the champion. And that one more thing will be just to get the center of these bows and anything else I may have missed here. Looks alright. How about you center your bow? And these are pretty good for, single piece plastic. They're not bad. They're super bendy, that's the annoying part, but it also means that they're super durable, which I can't complain about because it's nice to have a game where you could just kind of throw it in the box. As long as you've got it sealed, should look okay. Yeah, one of these other homeboys, I guess this homeboy here, we'll make him blonde too. I'm gonna tighten this up a little bit. Tighten up my shot. Yeah, we'll go two blonde and two brunette for these elves. This guy here shall be on Team Blonde. Alright. Okay, that's pretty good for now. Let's get back to the champ while this yellow is drying. Actually, wait. Before we get back to the champ, let's do brown here. Look at this. I want to show this for a second. I got a rant here for a sec. Look at this snake. Look at these GW pots. It's snake bite leather. You see how it won't close because you got all that guck in there. And this is even worse with contrast paints because this is super hard. I was actually digging at it a little earlier today with this little knife. You can see it's got stain there. You can just see how hard the crud in the lid dries. All right, I'm gonna try to scrape some of this out. That stuff in there dries pretty nasty there. You can see I've got a big old chunk of it. I'm trying to get this to a point where I can close the lid there. But that contrast paint is so sticky. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like a built-in timer to make you go out and buy more product because eventually this will happen to your pots. Even, and I tend to be, kind of paranoid about keeping everything totally shut. when I can, but it just eventually it's just gonna happen that you're gonna accumulate this amount of guck in the chime there. I don't really know what to call that. I mean, in a paint bucket, you would call that, you'd call this area the chime. So I guess I could call it the chime here. Look at that buildup though. Okay. Wow. That is some really sticky, solid paint there. All right, I'm gonna close my door. 3-year-old sounds like he is he's in his night form. He's like Dad, he doesn't like to sleep. Yeah. Anyways. Hopefully I can close this now that I've pulled out the majority of that guck. Let me try to get this last bit of it. Maybe I can close this again. It may be too late though, for the paint. Because once these contrast paints start to settle out and dry, you're never quite sure of how the paint is going to behave. Because you did just lose a bunch of water. So wow. There we go. I think that's all of it. I think that's all. Let's see if it will close now. Not quite. Still doesn't quite close. What? Hold on. Do I have to get all of it out? Maybe this ring here warped or something? Why isn't it closing? Let's try it one more time. See if it closes. Nope. Even after you clean it out, still does not close all the way. Very upsetting. Man, you got, okay, there, I got it. I got it to close. Okay. Let's shake it back up. Make sure this sucker is gonna work. All right. Okay. Shook it back up. Now let's use it. We're gonna use it on the shoes. For these guys. I might also use it on this bottom skirt. Who knows? Just to, keep that really warm effect going. Instead of white. This guy has quite the forehead. have that hairband white so I can hit it with green. Oh, yeah, looks pretty good. Yeah, I don't know if I think maybe I should hit that with brown. It would definitely give the model, yeah, it's gonna give it nice warmth. All right, I'm down for this. You know, definitely gonna make these elves look more like forest elves, and it'll do nicely with the with the summer theme here. So super warm color with that brown. Yeah, I like that. Just prevent it from pooling is all I have to do. Okay. Yeah, that's nice. I think with the white at the bottom, it would just look a little too weird for, they wouldn't quite match the champion, as the champion has no white on her, but she does have some of the snakebite leather color, so this will work. Or I guess it should work is what I should say. We'll see when it's done, right? We'll see if that actually did work or not. But yeah, I really do like painting elves. So it's my favorite fantasy race to paint. Not like grow elves, not the grimdark stuff, but like actual, you know, pretty elves is what I like. Just bringing that hairline a little bit. He just looks a little strange, that's all. And then once this is down, we can hit them all with that initial green color of the base. So yeah, let's just go ahead and do that. Let's just push and see what we end up with. Cool. All right, so let that dry. It kind of closes now. Man, it's how upsetting. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit it with the green. Okay. I really did kind of paint them as generic elves. Well, I guess more generic would have been white and blue with gold armor. It's a pretty generic, like, high elf pattern there if I wanted to follow that. Uh-oh. What am I getting? Maybe somebody telling me that my sound isn't working? Who knows? Cool. Merry Christmas, dude. That was nice. Somebody wishing me Merry Christmas. All right. Okay. Cool. We'll give that some time to dry. Really, one last thing to block on these. Well, two last things to block, and then the color blocking is basically done. So let's just go ahead and do it. Let's just knock out the rest of the color blocking so that we can kind of concentrate on the champ a little bit more. Yeah, the last couple things to color block are the weapons on these guys. All right. And we reply. Okay. So we're going to do Wildwood on the bows. You're starting to see, though, what these color schemes are. All right. So it's giving you some idea what this squad is going to look like when all is said and done. I'll give her, she'll have a dark brown bow here on her hair. I love this sculpt. This is just a great regular elf sculpt. Like if I was playing D&D and I wanted to play an elf, this is the sculpt I would reach for. This is a very, very good elf sculpt. Okay, we'll let that dry. All right. Whoa, there's a big long message. It just flashed past my screen. Okay. Hold on. Hold on. Okay, there we go. All right, and let's hit the swords with a little armor wash, right? Just to get that started, that process, because that will be a process. Whoa. And this guy here, discount Elrond. Okay, there. So those guys are basically color blocked, and you'll see how we start with these colors and then, you know, move them into these colors, make that a little bit more interesting there. All right. So now let's get some more browns here. We're gonna go with this color here, NMM Gold Shadow. Which is also a really good highlight for the brown in her hair. So we will use it a little bit for both. All right, so it will be a little bit, we'll use it to, you know, in patches. All right, just to kind of break up the green. I always like to just kind of blend a little bit of brown in there, right, to give it some patchiness. And a lot of times you could just do this, you know, wet on wet if you want a softer look. You just put it down. Not a lot of thought into this. You just kind of, oh my God, that cat's still crying. He went in the room and then he got out and then now he went, oh shoot, I totally forgot I needed to do this on the banner. I always forget to paint the banner. The banner is just like the furthest thing out of mind here. So I gotta go with the banner. Got this whole green thing here. Alright, now we can blend this all in. There we go. Alright. Alright. Let that dry. And let's make with some highlights here. It's a little too subtle here, but that's okay. Probably not the worst idea anyways to keep those highlights fairly subtle. Right, so now she's moving towards like a sandy brown hair color. which is pretty cool. And I'll actually highlight this up a little bit further too after this. Okay. I also need to highlight the warp green on the tabard, and we're going to do that with a pretty light green. We're going to go with the scorpion green here. So I got to be pretty careful with this stuff. Right? I don't want it to be too. I don't want the highlights to be too stark. It'll look weird. So this is a super light green, but as long as I'm reasonably careful with it, should look okay. It's not gonna look too weird. Morning, happy Christmas. How's it going, Shadowcat? It's morning for you. It's still evening for me, so I'm still in the middle of my Christmas Eve. Yeah, kids have not woken up and opened presents. It's gonna be a very, very busy morning, Christmas morning over at my place. So, figure let's get some painting done while we're there. Having trouble spelling out that Christmas there? Are you? I know you're just waking up. Either you're just waking up, or you've already had a few. All right. Okay. So looking pretty good. Um, let's do some highlighting on these ruins here, and I can even highlight the grass a little bit. So let's start there. Let's start with the ruins. I'm gonna use a pretty light gray to highlight that. 6:30 a.m. That is fairly early. That's the time I like to wake up, like on weekends and holidays. So I'm gonna be up 6:30 my time, because I got my mother-in-law coming over, who wants to cook breakfast, and that's gonna be a nightmare. Just so you know, that's not a treat. It's like, oh, I'll come over and cook you breakfast. No, that's gonna be bad. It's gonna be very stressful. Thank you. This is a very cool mini. Again, this is from God Tier. So they do make some pretty cool minis. The metal version of this model that came out as a preview is freaking awesome. I do regret not getting that model. But this model is still pretty good, all things considered, right? Still a pretty good model. I'm gonna get an edge highlight down here, right? Any plans for your Christmas day? You do anything fun? I take it you're not gonna watch Rise of Skywalker based on last stream's conversation? I will also not be watching Rise of Skywalker. Acid for Blood. Ah, my mother-in-law is, well, she's super, super well-meaning. She's a super well-meaning person, but you know, she's likely to, if there's a small fire, she's likely to try to put it out with a bucket of kerosene. You know, I've never seen, this level of sort of pathological uh, doting, I guess is what I'm gonna say. She's a very good grandmother. She's good with my boys and all that. But yeah, she's a stress case, and she often causes more harm than good with the best intentions. And she is afraid of me, which is kind of sad. That's kind of a sad commentary. She is afraid of me because she has horrible boundaries, and so I get caught in the middle of it where she's still trying to, still trying to control my wife um, as her mother, and it's like, well, your daughter is 40 years old. You shouldn't, you know, it's you gotta let her live her life and make her decisions and that kind of stuff. You know, she's just somebody that means very, very well, but cannot, for the life of her, execute on that. Just cannot actually make that happen. Perfect example was, um, we used to rent from her, both before and then shortly after we were married. I'm not sure, not even shortly, like for a while after we first got married, we were still renting from her, and she wanted to do a nice thing and sell us her place. She was going to sell us her place at a really, really reasonable price. And so it all sounded like a good deal. Um, so we stayed in that place instead of looking for our own place. And then she decided. Then we had our firstborn son, um, and she decided that she wanted to improve the place. So she wanted to make all these improvements. And it still sounds good and all, right? So she hires a handyman, and they're the she's putting in um, new lighting and all this stuff, and it's great. Again, still there, still super good. Um, our son is born, and you know he's growing up, and before we know it, he's 2 years old. Uh, he's 2 years old, and she just couldn't stop doing project after project after project. And frankly, she was kind of using this as leverage. She was using her place to like control us. Um, and it put us both. It put me in a really weird spot because I'm her tenant technically, and I'm not related to her, but I have to stand up for my wife and my family and our marriage. So it was getting to the point where my 2 year old, my then 2 year old, is playing in a house that is essentially a construction zone, and just watching him like trying to play in the kitchen where the floors have been ripped out, and trying to play in the living room where there's just tack board exposed, and it it really jarred me. It like um I guess, for lack of a better term, it shook me, and I was like, I can't let my kid play in this type of environment. I can't let him live in this type of environment. And yeah, there's supposed to be a promise at the end of this to sell us this place for very cheap, but I got to do what's right for my family. My wife's she was starting to break down from just all the craziness that would happen. Like we would just wake up, and She'd be at she'd just, without knocking, just in the place and doing construction, without any prior approval. I mean, it is her house, right? And I can respect that, but you know, especially when you have small kids and stuff, you can't live in that environment where where somebody's just going to continually barge in on you, um, and cause problems. So what I ended up doing was, you know, got some money together and went house hunting. Despite like went house hunting and found, we went around for a while, good while, and she kept pleading with us, "Oh, please don't go," blah 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 blah. She did this a couple cycles of this, like, where we would believe her and give her another chance, and then she would go right back into, these crazy projects and controlling the place, right? So finally, like I said, you know, my son is 2 years old. He can't play in this type of environment. He can't like even really be a kid. So we found another place, and despite our better efforts to get as far away from her as possible, um, the ideal place that we found was literally, not even a half mile away. It's in the same community. Like we moved like the equivalent of a city block, maybe half a city block away, uh, from where we were. And the house that we're in now is like the same model, in fact, as the house that we were going to buy for her, but from her. But we paid full price for it. She was not involved in any of it. She didn't help us financially or any of that. We just, you know, and this was largely my um, this was my work. Like uh, I was the one that told her, like, look, we're not gonna live like this. This is unacceptable. I'm getting us a new place. I will not listen to your offers for your place anymore because you have not, you have not stopped and actually put forth an offer. You never even gave us a price. So yeah, I moved us out. Um, Especially, oh, I forgot to mention too, when I was moving us out, then my wife, by the time we moved out, my wife was expecting our 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 second born. So it's like I'm definitely not going to have two kids in a construction zone, a 3-year-old and a newborn in this type of environment. So so yeah, I got us out of there. Um, it was a good growth experience for my wife and her mother, because it's like, you know, this is this is and I know this is going to sound patriarchal or whatever, but like this is this is my family, right? I'm responsible for this family. I say you know, I say what happens with this family, not my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law has her relationship with her daughter, but this family, me and my sons and my wife, this is my jurisdiction. And so I got us out of there. We got this place, which was great. And you know, she still watches our kids and all that, but now we have a definite wall there. We have a definite boundary. I can send her home anytime if I don't want her here, and she's aware of that, and so she tiptoes a little bit around me now because of that, because it's, like, this is not her property, right? This is my home. I can and yeah, it makes a difference. It you have to be able to do that with people that don't have good boundaries. But even then, right? She's still like, tomorrow morning, she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna do you this solid and come over and cook breakfast for you." Again, sounds fantastic on paper, right? If any sane person would be like, "Wait, somebody's gonna come over and cook you breakfast, and you're complaining about it? Like, what the hell's the matter with you, right?" You have to know what kind of person this is, and especially the reaction my wife has to her. My wife goes like, I'm just saying, it wasn't they didn't have the healthiest relationship. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of bad stuff in the past and whatnot, and I don't care to get into it, but suffice it to say, um, it you know they don't have the healthiest forms of communication, and they don't have the healthiest boundaries. And so a lot of me coming into the picture here, you know, marrying my wife and all that, was inheriting this, and then having to stake a claim in the middle of this very controlling relationship. My wife is an only child, um, and the circumstances of her early life and everything are, you know, I'll just say they were pretty tragic, and it traumatized both my wife and my mother-in-law, to the point where there's still a lot of damage today. There's still a lot of damage around what happened in the past and all that. So, but yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get too into it, but yeah, that's what's going on. It's just always kind of a challenge when you deal with stuff like that, family baggage and whatnot. And obviously, there's baggage on my side of the family too. There's weird politics on my side of the family. Essentially, I don't really even associate with my family, uh, except for my dad. My mom passed, but that was like really those are the those are the people that I still associated with my family, my siblings and I. Um, I choose not to really associate with them because of family stuff. Everybody's got family stuff. So, but yeah, you got to do. The end of the day, when you have kids, you got to do what's right for your kids. And you know, if your siblings are a toxic, if you consider your siblings to be a toxic environment for your kids, get your siblings out of there. I mean, get your siblings out of there. Get your family, um, where they can be safe, and they still have some relationships within the family, but we stay away from the toxic ones. Is what I'm saying. So anyway, um, okay, I want to try a little bit of a shimmery effect, and I don't know. I want to try it, but I don't know how well it's gonna work because I got some white in here. It's too subtle. Yeah, it's too subtle. That's okay. It blends. It just blends. Doesn't really do anything there. All right. A little highlight in the hair though would be nice. Is it? I'm sorry. I love this miniature. Am I? I love her. I love her. She's great. She's awesome. Um, she's decent in game. She's not. She's she's not that interesting, if I'm being honest with you. She's not as interesting as Finvar, the guy I painted last night. He's very interesting in game. He's got a very fun play style. She's more like artillery, right? You see her shooting a big bow, well, that's what you get. You're shooting a big bow. Although she does have some nice, reasonably nice mobility tricks in there as well. So she's not like totally just fixed on one side of the board firing arrows all day. You could totally play her that way. As a hunter, I don't I don't know how she rates power wise. She seems to be very good against armored targets. Like slow moving armored targets are very good for her to pick on. So she's what you call a hunter class in this game. Um, and hunter class champions, they specialize in taking out other champions. So really, you want to use her, her artillery ability to pick on the opponent's champions. I like the look of the Marvel mini games. The minis do look good. If I had the choice between, because I got a gift certificate for my LGS, and I was looking to spend it. So I had the choice between God tier or taking a nice healthy discount out of Marvel Crisis Protocol, and I kind of based it off of one of the inputs was Yvonne really wanted to play this game. She liked the look of some of the minis. I think it's a ploy. I could be wrong, but anyway, she liked the look of some of the God tier minis. So she bought God tier, and I was like, okay, I will also buy God tier so that we can play. But I don't know. There's a few of us already that have a passing enough interest with God tier that we'll play it. Okay, and then one of my favorite things to do here. Oops, sorry. On these I like these really. I thought artillery is an ogre with a goblin on its back with a bow. That's orc artillery. Elf artillery is prettier. So, spot of glue right there. And we'll put a patch of flowers. Right there. Right, just a little splash of color right there. And then we'll paint the base black. Okay, so here's the deal with black. Or my opinion, finding a good black miniature paint is a pain in the ass. Okay, because there's a lot of blacks out there. I don't mean that in a racial thing, but there's a lot of miniature black paints out there that are just going to behave differently. For example, if you're in game color black, this is game air black. It's not as good hiding, and it's higher sheen. This is one of the problems with black, is coverage on black can be very difficult sometimes. I've been using this Thamar black on Mythic Battles Pantheon to paint the bases, and the stuff crawls because it's got too much surfactant in it, and it's just trying to flow all over itself, and it doesn't cover well, and it's high sheen. There's also where's the other? I have a Reaper black, Reaper pure black, which isn't terrible. It's not the worst black I've ever used, but again, the coverage is spotty. It's flatter than the Thamar black, but the coverage is spotty. If you want a nice, flat, good covering black, this is where you go. And this stuff is this is like crack cocaine, man. Like, this is very important. It's a very important black to go with. Anyways, it's not I'm just hitting the rim of this base. It's not very important for that because all of those other blacks I just mentioned are going to work fine for that. But if you have to paint a large flat surface black and you really want to have a good even coat on there that's not going to look weird, Vallejo model color black, not game color black, model color black is where you want to be. I even like it better than the scale 75 black. I've gotten into many arguments with people. I'm like, no, this black, scale 75 claims to be the flattest black, But I don't think so, man. I think I painted these out side by side, and this is a flat. This black dries to a flatter black. So we'll let her dry. And we'll start to work on the other guys here. Whoa! Don't drag him with you. Super fun. Yeah, I mean, when you're painting on the miniature, you don't put black paint. I never put black paint on the miniature. If I'm painting black on the miniature, then I'm using Vallejo Model Color Black Gray or German Gray. Right, those are what, if I'm painting black on the miniature, like those the dual wheeled guys, that's what I paint. Try mixing medium with black as the medium is zero pigment paint. Yeah, and you can do stuff like that, to get it to flow out better. But the sheen of those other blacks is what really gets me. It's very difficult to work with. Okay, so now we're gonna tone these yellows into. We're gonna make them a more gold color. Like I said, there's a number of different ways you can do this. We're gonna go with dark oath flesh to make these a high burnish gold, and then we'll highlight them, right? So dark oath flesh, you can see, gives it a nice shadow and burnish at the same time. You can use, if you want more of a red color on your burnish, you can use Guilliman flesh, or however it's pronounced. That works out fantastic. But I'm gonna go with dark oath here. I just really like these elves. They're very Tolkien-esque style elves. You know, they look fairly standard in their design, but I want that. The GW elves to me look, borderline goofy with the cone hats, and they have their facial features are bad on those GW elves. The facial features on the GW elves are too Gurliman flesh, yes. They're too angular, right? The elves are supposed to be a fair race. The GW elves are very, very unattractive, in my opinion. It's called it's P3. One thing I don't like is the lid snap off. Yeah, I hate I don't like those lids either. P3 has some excellent paints in their line, but really, I'm all about their inks. Their inks are fantastic. Oh, you weren't in earlier when I ripped the entire ribbon of contrast paint out of my snakebite leather, the chime, just so I could close it. Yeah, GW is it's terrible. Anyway, I'm glad I'm in this company where I can just say shit like that. And people don't freak out. What do you mean? Fantasy Romulans, yes. Like these are good looking elf minis. I like them quite a bit. I hope God Tier comes out with a shaper elf and a I forget what they call them, a berserker style elf warband. I'll explain what that means in a second. Let me just get this color down, get this shade down here, because there are 4 types of champion in God tier. There aren't factions. And at first, when I saw the 4 different colors of plastic, I thought there were factions in God tier. There are not factions in God tier. You can mix whatever warband you want with whatever warband you want when you're making your army for a game of God tier. But the colored plastics do mean different things. Okay, so um, so for example, this set here came on red colored plastic. I'm not going to take her off the base, but if I did, underneath you'd see it was red plastic. Okay, red plastic. A red plastic warband denotes hunters. Hunters are champions that excel at killing other champions, and they get a bonus. They get bonus victory points. Yeah, you could hear. You can hear that. That's the 3-year-old kid. He's a bruiser, man. He's running around upstairs right now. He's just throwing toys everywhere. Is not the kid. My other son is asleep. My 6-year-old is asleep. He goes to bed at a very good hour, and he's asleep. That's the 3-year-old. If it gets bad, mom is gonna call me, and I'm gonna take the 3-year-old down here. I'm gonna shut off the feed, and I'm gonna put him to bed. I've done it before. We have to do it. You know, he does better with me because I guess because I'm more stern with him, and he responds to that a little bit better than to mommy. So I'm like the failsafe if she can't get him to do stuff. Anyway, what was I talking about? Different types of champions, right? So hunters excel in KOing other champions. Then you have Finvar and his team, who are blue. They come on. They come in blue plastic. Oh, above you. Oh, gotcha. Um, well, I don't know if you have to put kids to bed, but I it's morning for you, so they're just up and around. Anyway, so the blue champion warbands are protectors, so they're very good at protecting their banner, and they get bonus points for doing so. And then you have shapers, which are the green plastic. They're very good at manipulating the map and manipulating objective tiles. Um, so that's what green plastic means. And finally, yellow plastic, like this dude here, denotes marauders. Marauders are very good at killing minions. They specialize in killing followers. So this guy, for example, you would use him to go after the other guy's minions, um, and you're going to gain bonus points for him taking out your opponent's minions. Whereas if you're if you're playing her, you're going after the other player's champion, right? So if you wanted, so I'm a typical game of God tier is 3 champions and their warbands. Oh, okay. You're transmuting. Okay. You know, it's just neighbors' kids, I guess. Well, at least they're excited. It's Christmas morning. They're gonna be opening pre- presents and whatnot. Anyways, um, so yeah, so that's what the different color plastics mean in God tier, and you can build your warband any way you want. You don't have to have like one hunter and one marauder and one protector. I just want that. There's no purple in God tier. There's no purple minions, but the yellow minions, the yellow warbands denote marauders, which are basically they specialize in killing enemy minions. So yeah, okay. Let's keep going with some highlights here. Um, this is going to be interesting. So you have to decide how I want to highlight that. And I feel like if I go with Scorpion Green, it's too yellow. I think the right color is gonna be verdigris. Yeah, it's got to be paler, so we got to go verdigris for this. I don't know. It either works or it doesn't. Oh man. So your upstairs neighbors, I guess they have small kids. I when I used to live in apartments and stuff, that was always the terrifying thing was, if you had super loud neighbors or whatnot. Um, Luckily for me, I was the loud neighbor, so I always had like, the I my when I first moved out from home, my first neighbor was like a retired uh, military guy who I guess he was a Marine, and he was super nice. He was really nice to my wife and I, to our face, but he would always just be screaming through the ceiling for us to be quiet. Oh, you're at the minions from the Gru movies. Hey, I totally missed that reference, but now I got it. Now I got it. My son loves minions like all kids do, and the purple minions were super cool as well. My 3-year-old really loves minions. And that's really one of the first, things that he watched. This is way too light. Well, we'll make it work. So one of the first things that he watched that really made him like crack up laughing, like legitimately, you know, laugh, not like regular baby laugh where they sometimes babies just laugh at whatever. He actually he actually did find that super humorous. Yeah, dude, this is not. I don't know. I don't know if this is what we're doing, folks. It just seems too. I guess I do want that yellow in the highlight. This just seems too pale. It seems too desaturated, and I want a warmer highlight. I say as I continue to highlight. Oh, you're worried they're gonna fall through the floor? Oh, geez. I hope not. My kids are so loud here. This room here is, this is my gaming and hobby room, and so sometimes I'd have friends over to come game in here, and we would sometimes stream games from here and whatnot. And they would always hear those kids running around upstairs. And it was just terrifying sound for them. They're like, "Oh my God, your kids sound like they're just destroying the house up there." Like, nah, they're just throwing their toys on the floor. Yeah, my 3-year-old's up, by the way. I hear him. Mommy's giving him a scolding to go to bed. That's not gonna work. Ugh. It's too pale. I don't know. Maybe I go. Let's try Scorpion Green. Let's try it. I mean, it's paint, right? If it doesn't look good, we just redo it. I mean, that yellow definitely gives you a little bit more interest. It's not bad. It's just with this design of the cloak, how do you really get this to punch when it's just, it's just a few lines? If I was a more creative painter, I would have figured out how to do that. How to get a little more punch out of this. Soundproofing. I could do that, but not worth the effort, frankly. They're just little kids. They're gonna be, you know, they grow up fast. Little kids grow up way fast. I guess when they're yours, they grow up fast. When they're not yours, you're like, hurry up and grow up, kid. So I don't have to see pictures of you. Your parents toting around pictures of you taking a shit, telling us everyone else how cute you are. Oh man. I really have to fight off urges to show my kids off to people. I know what that's like now. I you know, grew up on one side of that where it's like, God, I don't want to see your kids, dude. No one gives a shit about your kids, ma'am, right? And then you have your own kids, and you just think they're so amazing that, oh, sure, my kid did this. The whole world needs to know about this, you know. And you blast your shit on social media, like, my kid just took a shit, isn't he special? Like, you just do stuff like that. I try to, like, I stay pretty conscious of that. I try to check myself. I still brag about my kid though. Like, I still get caught bragging about my kid. The other night I was bragging about my kid, like the fact that his favorite Star Wars characters were IG-88 and Boba Fett, and not any of the horrible Disney sequel characters. I had a greenwash. I could do that. So that's a pretty good suggestion. Let's get the highlight down and then decide if that is. We'll decide if that's necessary or not. I guess what it boils down to is there's there's a really nice subtle patterning here that I want to draw your people's eyes to, but I don't need them to necessarily, see it as the most distinct pattern, if that makes sense, right? I want people's eyes to be drawn to the little lines and the folds in the pattern, but it's not the focal point of the model. They're gonna see, because we're gonna follow the same type of highlight scheme as my son. Oh yeah, he does. In fact, he today, like I said, we were out and around doing stuff for Christmas Eve, getting we did some grocery shopping. We went to a Filipino market so I could buy ingredients for pancit, which is a Filipino noodle dish, which is amazing. And I do make the world's best pancit. I really do. It pisses off all the Filipino ladies that know me. Anyways, so yeah, so we did some grocery shopping there. Then we had to go grocery shopping for mom. So we went to the Filipino grocery store. Then we went to the white people grocery store. And he was such a good helper for me that I took him to the hobby store afterwards and he picked out a model. So let me show you what he picked up today. So every time I'm in the hobby store, which is like, you know, the hobby store for me, my LGS, it's 5 minutes from me, right? It's like I could see it from my house, from my balcony. I could overlook the city and see the hobby shop. Um, so this place is like the equivalent of like the local pub for me. Like if I'm coming home from work and I don't want to go directly home, I stop at the comic book store. And I'm always looking at what products they have on hand and trying out new products. And I try to buy miniatures and stuff, make sure I support that shop. I want to buy stuff for my son, but I'm always wrong about what he's going to pick. And plus, he really likes that shopping experience. Like he likes to go through and look at every rack and make a good decision about what he wants to paint next. So today, he picked up this guy, which is like a Death Knight thing. Reaper Bones, obviously. I tried to get him to buy Reaper Black, but this is fun. Like, this is a good model. I'll prime it up for him. I primed up another model for him to paint, but he hasn't gotten around to it yet. Because he picked this Green Reaper thing last time. So I primed it all up for him, but he hasn't sat down and painted with me for a little bit. But we're still buys miniatures. We still try to set up painting time for him. But he's a 6-year-old. He's got toys to play with. He's got stuff to do, right? Okay. So this model here also has a really neat. There's a really neat, really soft pattern in here. It's like a double helix style pattern. And I don't know how well I can pick this out. It's too soft for the flat end of your brush to catch, but you can see it as I do that. You can see it start to pop up there. It's really neat, right? But it's so subtle. I'm just trying to figure out like what's the best way to call attention to stuff like that without horribly overdoing this. Here, I'll show you the other side. Again, it's a very, very faint pattern. There it is. See it starting to pop now? There it is. I gotta figure out. It's super cool. How do I draw attention to it without drawing too much attention to it? I think it's more yellow. Order 2 Reaper minis, the reclining Sophie, and the bike round Monday arrived Tuesday. Can show you the mini off I was typing. Reclining Sophie sounds awesome. I love the Sophie minis. I have the Pirate Sophie somewhere in this room. And I want to use her for games. Sophie is just such a great sculpt. Lots of character. And I love what they do with her like every year. Yeah, I guess we're just gonna treat this as super soft. Super soft highlights. I mean, maybe that is the answer. Maybe I just do super soft highlights on it. Maybe I do ice yellow. I'll figure it out. Okay, next up. Oh wait, before I move on, let's get some yellow on this. We're doing pretty well. Minis are moving along. Once I finish painting Wu-Tang Clan, I will officially have enough minis to play a full-size game of God Tier, which is cool. I don't know I think locally nobody else has a fully painted, set of 3. But it's okay. Try to get somebody around to play some God tier with me. Record a video of that so you guys can see, um, you know, a game of God tier in action. Oh, look at this. This is, see that big blotch right there? That I don't like. Okay. Anyways, let's do a little NMM gold. I'm gonna need a little bit more. And we're gonna do this to get some of the yellow back in the gold that we shaded. So this is gonna bring some of the yellow tone back, and then we're gonna edge highlight it to really, bring most of that, to bring a sharper look to this gold, right? So this is just gonna come in fairly light. Details on these are very soft. That's a good and a bad thing. It's good in how delicate it makes the model look, but it's a pain in the ass to highlight. The mini junkie was doing some of the Marvel money. Oh, which one's mini junkie? I know I'm subbed to him. But I've been seeing there's a lot of channels that have been doing Marvel stuff. What was the last one? Cujo Painting has been doing some Marvel stuff, I believe. And then obviously GMG. So there's a lot of cool stuff. I know I'm subbed to Mini Junkie. You just have to remember. Hopefully that stuff shows up in my feed too. You know what I mean? Sometimes you don't, like, you have stuff in, new content or whatever, and it doesn't show up in your feed. Maybe they upset the YouTube gods. Susan over at YouTube was mad about something I said. I don't know. I feel like if I was actually a big channel, I would have already been banned from YouTube. I would have got, at the very least, demonetized. I would have been, at the very least, demonetized by now. Just for saying some dumb shit. I'm gonna say some dumb shit. This is me we're talking about. Alright, so that's bringing some of that yellow tone back. You want to leave plenty of shadow, but you also need that yellow tone, and then we're going to get this really sharp edge highlight to make this stuff look super, super clean. I already did that. All right. Cool. This is my favorite sculpt of the three elves. Yeah, you start watching a feed and the next videos don't pop. Yeah. Or I have found like occasionally I'll find out I was unsubbed to a channel for some reason that I was subbed to. And you rediscover it on your feed and you're like, you see that the subscribe option has not been clicked and you're like, wait a minute, I am subbed to this channel. And it turns out you're not, so because YouTube has decided to unsub you. All right, next up. So we're going to hit this with ice yellow. Again, we're going to start bringing up more of the highlights of this gold. Should that be? Yeah, we got that right. It's okay. All right. Ooh, it's getting late, but we're doing pretty well. Might be able to finish. I don't know. We'll try. It just depends on how much more tedious this becomes. Right? So we're going to use this ice yellow as like an edge highlight for the gold bits. This is where you start to consciously think about where those highlights really need to be. It's also a blonde model, so I'm just gonna also, oh, try not to make her, don't go crazy. But yeah, we are gonna give her a little bit of highlight up top. I guess she can be a little bit of a platinum blonde. Okay. And might as well get little highlights there. And I am half tempted to take this super bright highlight into the green part of the cloak, just to try to draw more attention to that, to what's going on down there. But you have to be pretty sparing with this type of highlight. If you overdo it, you change the color too much. Like the whole point of it is to go super, super light at the very tip of the highlight and super, super dark in the shadow. And forcing that contrast is what gives the model, most of its interest. I'm going to try it. I'm going to try just on the patterning here. Like what happens if I do this? Is it too light? It's pretty light. It's not bad. Yeah, I think I actually need, that's too light. I actually need more of a yellow yellow to do that, to do what I'm trying to do down here. So I'll save it. We'll hit it with a yellow yellow. Right, like a candlelight yellow instead there. Let's just do this as the highlight to the gold bits, right? This reminds me of one of those dream catchers you see on people's rearview mirrors. The hell? So yeah, hope Christmas. I hope I have a relaxing Christmas day. I don't want to. I just don't want it to be manic. I don't want it to be manic or hectic. My kids are gonna have plenty of fun just playing with their toys, their new toys in the house. We'll have, my mother-in-law over and her husband. Just enjoy hopefully a quiet day. We'll see. We'll see. How did I do the blonde hair? Oh, that was just cyan in yellow. Just cyan in yellow and then a little bit of a highlight in it. That was it. Cyan in yellow is quickly becoming my favorite contrast paint because you can do so much with it. And it's weird too because it's yellow. People don't think, "Oh, I don't need yellow. I barely paint anything yellow." And I'm like, you know how much stuff you can do with that yellow? You can make all these like non-metallic golds. You can make blonde. Um, you can even use it for like undead stuff. A very, very good color. You have a dream catcher over your bed with no bad dreams. Well, that's good. I have, I still have bad dreams, but have you ever, uh, have you ever done lucid dreaming? I taught myself how to do lucid dreaming. Um, I like, I I could sort of do it as a teenager, uh, and then as a young adult, I really got into it and taught myself how to lucid dream. It's not something that comes up very often now because I just don't consciously try to do it anymore. So it doesn't come up nearly as often anymore, but it was really cool when I was doing that. Uh, I've done some weird shit with lucid dreaming. Um, I have forced myself to die in dreams. You know, like when those dreams when you fall off a building or whatever, and you're about to hit the ground, and then you wake up and it was all a bad dream, and you're stressed out. Well, I've had dreams where I knew they were a dream, so you can control. You know, once you realize it's a dream, you can kind of control your dream. Uh, you can even, in my case, like I'm even able to feel my body. Like I could feel my outside body while I'm dreaming. Um, and what's really scary though is you might be able to control the dream. I found this out. You might be able to control the dream, and you can feel your body, but you can't make yourself wake up. It's the craziest thing. Like I've lucid dreamed that where like, okay, I'm gonna force myself to wake up. So you try to force yourself to wake up, and you feel like you think you've woken up, and then a couple minutes later you realize you're still in a dream. You've just forced yourself out of one dream into another dream. I know it sounds freaking crazy, but yes, that's that's an experience I've had. You can choose not to believe it, but yeah, that's I'm gonna, that really is something that happens to me. Um, but other times, like I was saying, I forced myself to die. Like I forced myself to hit the pavement, and I've hit the pavement, and you don't you don't feel anything other than like the cold pavement against your face, and you can feel blood coming out of your body. And you're like, holy shit, this is weird. Like, I've just forced myself to die in my dream, but you're not dead. Your consciousness is still going. Um, so you can't, a lot of people get like freak out like at the thought of if you die in your dream, then you die in real life type thing. That has not been my experience. My experience is you can make yourself die, but you're still very conscious in your dream. You just you're just sitting there essentially. Okay, and that's pretty good. But yeah, lucid dreaming is a thing. You can look it up. It's I don't. For me, the way it works is you just have to realize consciously while you're having a dream. You have to realize that you're in fact having a dream. And once you realize you're having a dream, then your ability to control um, what happens in your dream, it's really awesome. Once you get to that point, it's usually I'm usually having a nightmare, and then that usually tells me that I'm having a dream. One of the other things, like one of the other really easy things for me to catch is like if I'm having a dream I'm in college, but I still have kids, right? I'm having a dream that I'm back in college, but I know the name of my two children and my wife. Then you're like, I am clearly not in college in real life, and therefore this is a dream. Uh, and then you can control the dream. That's all it really takes from my experiences. You just have to figure out that you're in a dream. Once you figure out that you're in a dream, then it's then you realize you are already in 100% control. But yeah, I strongly recommend if you're yes, you have an open mind, I strongly recommend looking into it. Look into lucid dreaming. I think there are people that claim to have techniques to teach you how to lucid dream. Um, but I will attest to yes, lucid dreaming is a real thing, and you can control your dreams. Um, but the major thing is figuring out that you're in a dream. If you can figure out that you're in a dream, then yes, you could totally control it. That's the easy part. Oh, man, that still didn't hide very well. I may have overdone the highlights on this guy, on this particular guy. Probably. I probably did. I'm okay. I don't care. It's just the one dude. It's fine. Looks like I already got this guy. Cool. Really screwed that up. Cool. Yeah, I don't know. My fantasy race has always been elves. I've always really, when I was a kid, I saw the Lord of the Rings, the Ralph Bakshi cartoon, Lord of the Rings. Before I read the books or anything, I saw that cartoon, and um, Legolas was my favorite character in that cartoon, and it was more than just the fact that he ran around and shot a bow, and he always seemed to be like super good. He was just like he seemed like way more elite than a lot of the other characters in terms of his skill. That really wasn't so much the drawing point the for me. I just really liked I just liked how sleek he was. I liked how aloof he was and quiet and nimble. I liked how lithe elves looked, and I liked they were super cool to me. So I've always really liked elves. So back when I was playing, D&D and all that stuff, my main characters were always elves. And then, we started playing Warhammer, 40K, then Eldar, high elves. I just always really liked elves. They've always kind of resonated with me for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe it's their arrogance. Maybe I like that. But anyways, I've always really liked them, and I even liked the idea that one of my favorite things in the whole GW universe was that orcs, the word orcs used for elves or Eldar was pansy. I love that. Pansy. I just thought that was great. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I just always been a big fan of them. Think they're awesome. Whoa, just dropped a paint. Had the lid on, so no harm, no foul. Yeah, I really got to figure out how I'm going to do the one they never finished. The Ralph Bakshi one, right? Yeah. The Lord of the Rings, and then they did have a Return of the King, but it was trash. It wasn't, and I think the Lord of the Rings was not a Ralph Bakshi movie, right? Somebody else tried to do it, and it didn't work. It went back to like the old kind of terrible animation. Not that Ralph Bakshi was a lot of like laser animation where they just laser traced over footage. There's Lord of the Rings had a lot of like Nazi and Zulu footage in it for orcs and stuff. That was wild. Can you imagine trying to do that in 2019? How many people would flip out? Like, dude, that's what they did though. So I'm trying a yellow on these contours to see if that. Yeah, elves have this. They just have this grace and yes, even their sort of haughtiness. I like it. Like I don't know. It just always resonated with me. And this whole idea that they're pursuing perfection, in the different pathways of their lives, and that they retain this youthful look for hundreds of years. And a natural sort of disdain for dwarves. I even kind of felt that about dwarf characters, and my brother always played dwarf characters, and I always played elf characters. Because dwarves resonated with him. He liked the dwarf half of that equation and what dwarves stood for and all that. It's so weird, this like subtle CW. Oh man. True though, like the footage that they used just freaked people out. It would have been way it would be that movie would be so banned today, which is just silly because if you think about it, they're essentially comparing Nazis to, you know, subhuman orcs. How is that offensive? And why are Nazis? Why do we make it them the boogeymen? Personally, I liked where I like what Mel Brooks did to Nazis in the 70s, where you know, um, where they made fun of the Nazis. It was who was it? The other day we were talking about that, and um, she brought up a really good point. It was like, look, neo-Nazis and actual Nazis love it when people are afraid of their iconography and that kind of stuff. They love it when the actual Nazis actually love it when people are terrified and they're the boogeyman and they're not allowed to show their stuff or anything like that. But if you did what Mel Brooks did with the Nazis, which is just make them all like into comical things, and every time Nazis were in his movies, they were just ridiculously dumb and silly and comic relief, that takes all the piss out of the whole, supremacy movement. It makes them into a joke, right? I feel like um, there's nothing more disempowering than that. If you're gonna be it's the opposite. Why are we treating them like they're the ultimate boogeyman to the point where we have adults that are treating life like it's the third grade. Like you can't do the okay symbol. You can't show clowns. You can't have people drinking milk because Nazis. You're like, dude, why would you give Nazis that much control over your life? Like, get out of the fourth grade. Say no. Drinking milk is not a hate crime. Just and Nazis are stupid people that need to be shamed in the public daylight. You don't need to treat them like boogeymen and specters, and you're giving them way too much power. Anyways, the producers, the producers, but even not just the producers, but look at all the Nazi references that Mel Brooks used in Blazing Saddles and um, what other movies that am I thinking of? Even things like History of the World, like not even look at Raiders of the Lost Ark. They had Nazis in that movie, and yeah, there was kind of a terrifying element to Indiana Jones, the Nazis that they used, but they also just showed them getting defeated and ridiculed and that kind of stuff, and so we shouldn't be. I don't think as a society we shouldn't be afraid of that, and we should actually keep people aware that this is how that worked in history so it doesn't happen again, right? Where everybody's so terrified that Nazis are going to be running in the streets and they're running around again, but we're not allowed to talk about what they actually did, which is probably the best way to protect against Nazis, right? Is to understand what they did and just and learn the lessons from that. But instead, you know, like I said, we're like in fourth grade again. We can't talk about that. And it's ridiculous. It's stupid. Like I feel like that accomplishes the exact opposite of what we're trying to do. Anyways, there you go. Random soapbox moment from me. If you don't like, but you have one as president, how the oh, you haven't been following that. Well, good for you. It's not worth your time, frankly. Um, it's all political gaming, you know. I will say it's political gaming by both sides, though, right? Because and it's stupid. So the best thing to do is just to ignore it completely. Understand that there is no uh, that no matter how you feel about our president, that this is just a political game. It's political theater for both sides. Um, you know, I now my wife is a registered Democrat, and we I'm a registered independent, by the way, in case you were wondering. And no, I did not vote Trump um, in the 2016 election. I did what any sane Californian should do, and I voted third party, because in California your vote doesn't really count anyways. It's a locked blue state, right? So my goal was to try to get, even though Gary Johnson was an idiot, my goal was to get Gary Johnson to 5% of the popular vote, so that the independent third parties would have more election funding in the next election cycle. So I was kind of voting ahead. Like my whole deal is, as a registered independent, is I feel like only two parties is one of the biggest reasons why politics fails in our country. Because with only two parties, you only fight on the extreme ends of both parties. There used to be moderate Republicans and moderate Democrats, and not anymore, man. Now it's like, you know, you you have to think Trump is a Nazi, or you have to think he is the God Emperor. There's no in between allowed. And that's the problem, right? If you had a third party that was actually forcing, or was actually offering the people the chance to be more moderate in their views, I think that would help balance these other two parties. That's just me. I also think that if you're one of those people that stands on moral grounds and truly believes that one of these two parties has your best interests in mind, you need to get the fuck out immediately. Like, you are the dumbest person if you think any of these polit- politicians give a flying fuck about you or your family. You need to stop. Okay, you know the you might even you might be able to make the case that, hey, like someone like a Bernie Sanders generally has genuinely has good intentions for people, but even he has some really horrifying ideas, for one, and two, he's still a multimillionaire whose main job is to keep himself in power, and that's all politicians. All politicians, no matter who you're talking about. Hey, what's up, Dicey? No matter who you're talking about, all politicians ultimately exist to keep themselves in power and extend their power. That's why there is no small government party anymore. And so this is why, I don't like to talk politics on this channel, but it is why I'm a staunch independent, because there needs to be small party government. I'm a big proponent of that. Um, and yeah, but yeah, that whole thing is political theater. Don't pay attention to it. No matter what side of the fence you're on, it's sad and embarrassing, uh, no matter how you slice that. So anyway, yeah, I'm really struggling to get these to highlight the way I want them to. I cannot quite get the right amount of attention on them. Either too much attention or not enough attention. Bottom line is, nothing will happen. How about that? Zero things will happen, no matter what side of the fence you're on. Nothing will change from now till whenever. It's just a lot of political maneuvering. Okay. All right. I don't know. Could not get that to do what I wanted it to. I don't know, man. Should I? You might be right that I should probably try washing it. I don't. I'm actually terrified to do that though. I just don't want it to get too dark. But I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do a little light effect here. Whoa. I hate that when that happens. You just get a little too big of a streak there. There you go. I'm gonna see if I can draw a little bit out of. Well, there. Ugh. It's just so fine. The detail's so fine. I don't want to slap you in the face with it. Ah, there's a dirty joke right there. Oh man. Oh man. I don't even want to say his name out loud for fear of being suicided. I don't want to be suicide. I don't want to be suicided. Please. All right. You got to be careful, Shadowcat, with saying that, man. You gotta watch out. Oh man, I can't win. I can't win. Like it's such a subtle thing. I guess it's okay. I want to I'm gonna make it work. I'm determined now. I'm on a mission. I want this to work, and I want the light to hit this the right way. We're gonna make this work. Damn it. That's it now. We've decided. This is gonna work. It doesn't look terrible. It just doesn't look right. It doesn't. It, like there's a lot of cool detail going on here, but it's so subtle that you don't want to draw too much attention to it, and it's very hard to not do that, like I just did right there. I just drew way too much attention to it. Oh no. Fade it out a little bit. There you go. At least he did not get trans people barred. Yeah, that's good. Oh man. Slick Willie though. It's really, again, I don't like to talk politics, but it's really interesting to get people's perspectives from outside of the country where things are happening from. And I know it's like, okay, so for example, in the Philippines, there's Duterte, which a lot of people look at as like, oh, that's a Filipino Trump, right? He's another outspoken populist style, but he gets, but accused of some. Duterte is accused of some really awful crimes, extrajudicial executions and that kind of stuff, right? And the rest of the world paints him as like this, as like a really really scary, deadly dude. Now, I was in, yeah, I could think about doing a glaze. Um, I could get the highlights down and then decide if I want to do a glaze on it. Um, but anyways, I was in Manila a little over a year ago, and I hadn't been back there for many years, and I was back in Manila and walking the streets and doing all that stuff, um, and having dinner with a local out there, and we talked a little bit about Duterte, and I was like, is everyone okay here? It seems like this whole country is living in fear of Duterte. And they're like, wait, what? Duterte? No, man. Duterte's freaking great. Like, what? That was shocking to me. And he explained it to me, and he said, well, you know, drugs were such a problem in the Philippines. Drug use was such a problem, and it caused so many other crimes like kidnappings, murder, that kind of stuff. And the police are also just as corrupt in a lot of cases as the dealers were. So yeah, Duterte did a lot of questionable shit. It's true, but the way they explained it to me is like, but we get to walk around our streets. You know, I was like, oh damn. I mean, that is true, right? Last time I was in Manila, like you didn't want to be walking around them streets so much, but to hear your average citizens go, well, hey, no, the streets are clean, right? There's no trash in the streets. There's no drug addicts everywhere. Uh, there aren't people shooting each other across buildings. We're okay with this dude. And to be on the outside of that, right? To be on the other side of the world where it's like this person is ruining their country and all this stuff, and you've got uh, you've got meanwhile, dude is rocking like a 70% approval rating. 70% is questionable because it's like dictators are usually the ones above 80% approval rating. So you're like anything above 80%, you're like, yeah, that's probably a dictator, right? That's probably some bullshit right there. But he was like close to 70% approval rating, and it's because um, people felt safe, right? And that's got to stand for something. I'm not defending what he did, but I'm just pointing out like perspectives are very different being inside or outside of the country. Like being able to walk your streets at night in downtown Manila, that is a pretty big effing deal. From somebody that goes there, like yeah, that's a big deal. To be able to go out and say, yeah, we feel safe at night. That's crazy, man. I've never heard anybody say that in the Philippines before, that they actually feel safe at night walking around. So it's no wonder why his approval rating is very high, and but the rest of the world looks at that guy like, oh my God, he's gonna do awful things, and he's gonna kill all of us. I don't know. All I can do is defer to the people who live there, and if they tell me their experience is different, and they appreciate at least some of the things that he does, well, that's what I have to go by, right? To be outside the country, you would think that I hear the headlines coming out of our country, and it sounds like freaking World War III happened over here in our country. It sounds like, oh my God, there's just hooded people walking down the street and lighting up, burning crosses on everybody's lawn. That's what it sounds like. Like the worst shit is happening, and you're like, if I can be frank with you guys, I'm like, a lot of us don't have time for that, right? We have jobs. We're doing well, believe it or not, despite what the news would tell you about how, oh my God, how horrible it is to be over here. Nah, man, we got record unemployment. We got people. This is a we're in we're in an employee empowerment phase where you can find jobs in so many different. So you actually have a lot of power over your employers right now, because it's like I can find work in this other city where, where it's cheaper to live and all this kind of stuff. So that's not to say everybody's doing better, but a good number of us are doing quite better. So I'm not, you if you want to make character attacks, you could do that all day long. Don't get me wrong, and I will join you and tell you, you know, how I feel about somebody personally. But it's very, very difficult to deny the observable truth that from a prosperity standpoint, we're doing pretty damn well. So, anyways, like I said, when I was in the Philippines, um, I was talking with some locals there about Duterte, and and they were saying, hey, like I said, it's you can safe to go out at night. People aren't shooting each other. There aren't People aren't kidnapping each other out on these streets anymore. There aren't gang wars happening on these streets anymore. And you cannot deny that this crazy old man is a big part of the reason why that's the case. Um, and they turned it on me. They asked me. They're like, hey, you know, how's how's Trump doing? They asked me that when I was in the Philippines. I'm like, like at the time it was a year ago. The economy was still pretty strong, but it wasn't surging. Like right now, it's like freaking surging. It was doing pretty well, and I'm like, for me, I'm in California. I don't really feel a difference other than I can't. There's no such thing as news anymore. I'll tell you that. There's no such thing as news anymore. If you turn on, like, you shouldn't watch TV for the news here in the U.S. You could watch your local news because they will actually tell you what the hell's going on outside your window. But if you watch corporate news here, that's all they want to talk about is this dude. That's it. And you're like, dude, how are we doing? How's our foreign relations doing? How's our economy doing? How are all of these hundreds of stories just going right over everybody's head so that we can yell "Orange Man bad" on our corporate news? Anyways, so I was talking to the dudes in the Philippines, and I'm like, yeah, it's like hard to tell. It's very hard to tell like what's really going on. And they're like, but shouldn't everybody be happy over there? Like your dollar is so strong. That's what they told me. Like your dollar is so strong, and it sure as hell is in the Philippines, dude. Like we freaking like my exchange rate was like I was loving that. Anyway, and I'm like, people don't think. There's a lot of people that don't think that way. That they're they're so offended, they're so upset about a person who is frankly a fairly degenerate person, right? Very easy to dislike, very easy to dislike, right? My wife hates his guts, but I'm like, and you can totally feel that way, but at the same time, I'm gonna collect this tax return. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna get my I'm gonna enjoy my job. We're gonna feel safer, especially here in Southern California, um, where one of the battlegrounds is the immigration issue, and as it's so difficult. I'm about to get thrown off YouTube, anyways, but that is something that does affect us here, and it's very polarizing, and you have to be very careful about it. But it's a double-edged sword no matter how you cut it. There are things that have absolutely improved, and then there are a lot of real human stories that you're like, oh shit, like that's rough, man. That's terrible. Um, so I don't know. That's all I'm gonna say is it's, to me, the most alarming part is that there is no such thing as news anymore over here. That's terrifying. right? You cannot get unbiased news here. You have to watch, if you're following a story, you have to watch 6 different things. And that's literally what I do when I'm following a story. Like if something's important to me, and yeah, I looked into this whole impeachment shit and I have my opinion on it. I I'm not going to discuss it on air again because we're living in fucking McCarthyism. Like I'm gonna get thrown off YouTube because somebody disagreed with what I said. Like that's the real problem, folks. It's not that you have different opinions. It's that we're we're in an authoritarian era. That's the scary part. Okay, I'm gonna say some real shit right now. I'm gonna say some real shit, frankly. And then I'm gonna get kicked off YouTube. But here's the truth. Here's the truth of it, right? One side wants to say there's racism, sexism, Islamophobia, homophobia, transphobia, and it's all the other side that is the cause of that. And now I'm gonna speak very plainly. This generation is is more racist. It is more homophobic. It is more sexist. It is more Islamophobic than the generation before it. But the one fact that people miss is that only comes into play when you're expressing the wrong quote unquote opinion. And I'll stick by that. I will stick by that. I've never seen such racist shit in this country as I have, when I was a kid in the late 70s, 80s. It was post Vietnam, and I'd get bullied at school because, I'm Asian. I haven't seen, at those times, I haven't seen shit like that since the 70s, but we're seeing it again. And you want to know how you're seeing it? I'm just going to tell you straight. Because, my friends are super diverse. They're super diverse, right? And I don't even have to prove that. You guys know the people that come on the show and comment on the show and follow me. But if you want to see someone be racist, like a white person yell at a black person in this country, point blank, that black person has to be conservative. That's the truth. And I don't consider myself conservative, but that's fucking observable fact. Like that is the easiest thing. You want to see you want to see a feminist, a male feminist attack a woman, make the woman conservative, right? Observable fact. You can go, you can look it up. You can look up the video footage of male feminists. Like they want to protect the women so much that they're willing to beat up the women's that have the wrong opinion. You want to see people uh, being transphobic, make the trans person the conservative. Make them have opinions that are outside of the mainstream. Typically conservative, but sometimes on the other side too. It, they just have to be outside of the quote unquote established moral religion that we're currently in. It's the same thing that was in the 80s. In the 80s, it was like, Phil Donahue would come on TV and tell people that you're a Satan worshiper. And there used to be witch hunts for people. Oh, I worship Satan. And if they used to have people go in to see their therapists. And I don't know why we're talking about this at Christmas, but fuck it. Uh, the people go in to see their therapist. They go in for hypnotherapy, and they'd have all of these. They would have all these quote unquote repressed memories that their parents would include them in satanic rituals. Anyone else old enough to remember this shit? I remember this. I remember being scared in the 80s, like, oh my god, my parents are gonna they're gonna put me in satanic rituals, and it's gonna all be uncovered when I'm lying down with a therapist being hypnotized. It's the same moral panic. It's the same McCarthyism. It's the same religiosity, the groupthink that allows people to, because the formula is always the same, right? Claim first, you claim the moral high ground. 2, you divide people into groups. 3, you unperson groups that are outside of your group. The Handmaiden's Tale, that's something that my wife talks about. She follows it religiously. She watches the show. I know of that story, and that was all written. That was all based on the moral panic of the 80s and the truly religious right patriarchal bullshit that was the strong authoritarianisms in the 80s. I tell people these days that I'm old enough to remember telling the boomers to stay the fuck away from my hobbies and stop telling me what to do. And I'm young enough to tell the millennials to stay the fuck away from my hobbies and stop trying to tell me what to do. Okay? That's what a Gen Xer is. A Gen Xer is somebody that's old enough to flip off a boomer, young enough to flip off a millennial, because they're the same fucking people. It's the same thing, and people don't understand it. The same level of authoritarianism, and it's the horrible thing about it is just what I said. It's like, oh, we're inclusive, we're against racism and homophobia and all this other stuff. But except with the notable exception that if you are outside of their if you're outside of their uh, political leaning, then they feel it is their moral imperative to be racist and sexist and homophobic to you. Holy fuck, man. That shit is true. And it was true of the boomers in the 70s and 80s. It's true of the millennials today. And us millennials, I'm sorry, us Gen Xers sat in the fucking middle, and we saw it, and we're like, you're the same as your parents. You're not special. You're not moral. You don't have the exclusive you don't have the exclusive right to being the only moral people. All right? So cut that shit out. It's you're just all you are trying to do is control other groups of people. And it's disgusting to me that we still group people, right? That's disgusting to me. Personally, it is. The goal of me, my whole thing with having challenges in this country because of my race. The whole goal was to make race not important. Was to make it so that it never even comes up in conversation. No one cares. And there are still, don't get me wrong, there's still invisible barriers we have to deal with. There's still in-group preference. There's still subliminal shit that still happens in people's mind. But you have to get to the point where we're trying to make it invisible. And that stuff, that the second part of that only goes away one of two ways in my experience. It only goes away one of two ways. And the fast way is through individual learning. In other words, the person who has those biases has to they have to encounter someone that they have a bias against, and develop a relationship with them and see them as a person. That's been the most effective way to do it. If you want people to stop talking race, and to stop treating people of different ethnicities differently, then you have to person everybody, and it starts with the individual. Anyways, that's the easiest way to do it. Obviously, that method takes years and years and years, and it takes the experience of people living their lifetime trying to short circuit the thing and use the very engine for racism to fight racism, because that is what it is, right? You pop the hood on this modern day inclusiveness, and it is based on the same thing that racism has always been based on, which is judge people immediately by their color. Right? That's the new wokeness. Is no. Color blindness is racism, which I completely disagree with. Like, color blindness should be the goal, as far as I'm concerned. My life has been a testament to that. I think race in my life, where I'm at today, my relationships with people, my job, in my home, and everything like that, my race is the last thing people notice about me. And that's a goal, right? I want people to see me as a person. I don't care that I don't ever want to be called a like an Asian American. I don't want to be called that because it's a fucking qualifier. I don't want. No, I'm an American. Like I correct people. Like no, I'm not. I happen to be Asian, but I'm just as American as you. My parents fought in the same. My grandparents fought in the same wars as your grandparents. We, I have just as much a legacy of being here, and I'm just as proud to be a citizen here as you are. And you're so no, there's no qualifier. Anyways, but that mentality is not. I know I stopped painting. I'm gonna go to bed soon. But that mentality has been completely wiped out. That's considered wrong. Like, no, how dare you? What do you mean? The first thing we need to acknowledge about you is your race. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. Because if that's the first thing you acknowledge about people and you specifically treat them differently, you are engaged, in my opinion, you are engaging in racism and you are basing basing your human interactions on something so simplified, oversimplified, and depersoning someone, in my opinion. That's just me though, right? I don't speak for anybody, but I do feel like the, what's important when you're meeting when you know other people, what's important is what they want you to know about them. What's important to them, right? Like we engage in this hobby. That's important. That's the important reason why we're here. Not the color of the hands on the screen, not what I've got in between my legs, not where I put what's in between my legs into somebody else. Wow, that was gross how I described that. But anyway, but that's not important. It's well, I'll say it's less important than why we're here together. That's my point. We're here together to enjoy this hobby, and it's wonderful that this hobby and previously the nerd life of comic books and video games, and it drew so many outcasts together that had all kinds of different challenges and different come from different walks of life and all that, but it was a uniter. You know what I mean? That's what was so great about it is you know, I was a dorky Asian kid in school, and you know, the closeted gay kid in school. We didn't know each other, but we started talking about comic books, right? We started talking about video games that we like to play. And meanwhile, the people around us, the normies around us, would make fun of us because you guys are fucking nerds. You guys are losers, right? You go to a comic book store, you're a loser. They said that. They used to say that in the 90s, the 80s and the 90s especially. You read comic books? You're a fucking loser. Think about today. You read comic books? Oh my god, you're so cool. Wow. You can see people fucking breaking open a comic book in a Starbucks, like hipsters, like full on hipsters with their beards and shit, and the shitty flannels and bad shoes. Like you, God, I'm evil. But you can see those people breaking that shit out in the middle of a Starbucks or talking about D&D in broad daylight, and I'm like, dude, the times have changed. And don't get me wrong, that's great that all of that has changed, but it also has reverted back into social pecking order, right? And we're not even allowed to talk about that. We're not allowed to talk about that. Like, what the fuck? We're not allowed to talk about that? Ugh. Like, okay, it's great that this stuff has become mainstream, but we we've swapped out the engine of unifying, and now we're back to social strata and judging people. Like, there are nerds that hold up litmus tests, like you have to like Star Trek, and you have to. Who's your favorite Doctor Who? Like people ask the people that want to check your nerd cred do that. Who's your favorite Doctor Who? And I'm like, I don't watch that fucking show. And they get super mad at me. Like, oh my gosh. I'm like, you're not a nerd. I'm like, yeah, by your definition, I'm not. Now fuck off. I'm gonna play this game. Like, I painted these miniatures. Go away. I don't care about the label. I don't need to be part of your community. Okay? I don't need to think like you. That was the whole point of being a quote unquote nerd in the 80s or 90s in the very first place, was that you did not think like the groups. You were outside of the groups. You forged ahead and you liked what you liked and you made it popular because there was a bunch of other outcast people who felt just like you. And what happened when we flipped the script and we made it popular again? Well, guess what? Well, no, you're not allowed to like it because we're gonna do this, and no, you can't. Now you're simultaneously forced to like it and simultaneously not allowed to like it. What the shit, people? What is this? That's why I tell people nowadays. I'm like, no, I'm not a nerd because I don't fit the modern day definition of nerd. Okay, the modern day definition of nerd is, frankly, based on observed behavior, is someone who engages in groupthink and owns the requisite amount of promotional product. Sorry, not sorry, but that's what it is. That's, you know, are you a nerd? Yeah, I own a Star Wars mug. It's oh yeah, you are. Wow, you have Star Wars mug, right? People go up to me like, are you a nerd? No, fuck out of here. Like, oh, so you're a buff guy jock? I'm like, no, clearly not that. I just don't I don't feel compelled to like the same stuff that you like. I don't feel like I have to be in any community that I don't have to try to be in any community that I'm just not that just doesn't fit me. And we even see that in the to a much smaller degree. We even see that in like the miniature gaming community, that they expect channels to behave a certain way. They expect, everybody's just sort of the big channels, and I don't mean to talk bad about them, but with the exception of some channels, like, man, if you guys remember Rubbish In, Rubbish Out, my main man Viv from Knights of Dice, like he was the only guy that just didn't play ball with the WGCs and the Valhalla Blue Table Painting and all that. Like he didn't play ball with any of them. He didn't give a fuck. Right? Viv was just dope. He didn't care. He'd get on his channel and he'd be like, "Hey mate, I painted these and these are great." And then he would go brew beer. And he was not in with the cool kids and he didn't give a shit. But we loved him. Like, I don't care. We'll watch him. I love the channels that are like that. Right? Like Viv, probably I consider him to be the largest rogue channel, quote unquote, in the miniature gaming hobby. Even though I will admit that Dr. Faust Painting Clinic, because I know that I know Tony. He's actually local to me. I know Dr. Faust. I've gamed with him before. He's he is fairly outside of the cool kids, but at the same time he has to play ball with them. But it's almost to the point where they have to play ball with him, right? They have to play ball with Dr. Faust because Dr. Faust is that big a deal. And Tony is a badass. He really is. But my point is, there's sort of that mainstream miniature gaming channels, and they put together high quality content. And I don't mean to name names or anything like that, but their videos are all very similar. They're all pretty similar. They all kind of cover the same topics, and they don't get into like saying like real shit like we'll say, like that people find offensive or whatever. That's the risk that we take, though, right? The cane mail, I don't I don't know who the cane mail. I never watched him. Though who needs to make more videos again is freaking Solvent Abuse UK, aka Dread Lund, man. He made a video like a month ago, and I was like, oh shit, Dread Lund made a video again. Love Dread Lund, man. Love Dread Lund. Like, That dude is the realest freaking dude in the hobby, and he just built the craziest freaking dioramas, terrain, painting miniatures. He was just nuts, man. He used to do. I loved it. He would do streams, and he can't do this anymore because fucking YouTube. But he used to do these streams where uh he would just be building shit, just throwing shit like on a giant table, and he would have music playing, and he'd have like he'd have like it would go like reggae, and then heavy metal, house, and then he'd have like Public Enemy, like oh my god, and we just leave his stream open because he was a freaking madman. uh I love that. And YouTube, they won't allow it anymore because oh, copyright playing other people's music, which I sort of get, but at the same time, like that was dope, man. Loved his channel. Like I wish we had. It's one of my favorite things about Idic Beer's group is the smaller channels. I love the smaller channels on those stations. I mean on Idic Beer's group because that's where you just get hobbyists, right? They're varying skill levels. Some of them are talented up the ass. Like some of them are just freaking badasses, right? But they do it. They may be rocking like 200 subscribers, but like their subscribers are really into their shit. Uh, because they're just great hobby. Like they're just super passionate about it. They may not have the best presentation skills, right? They're not like these high polished channels. I don't watch it for that. I don't care. I don't need a high polish. I don't need a high polished channel telling me what to do or what to like or anything like that. I want to see what this dude did. Like this dude's painting Test of Honor. This dude over here, who else is dope? British Legion. Like I watch British Legion stuff, and he's like, I painted these things, and his videos are like 2 minutes long, and like 30 seconds of his video is like him playing Morrissey or The Cure or some shit, right? He would just be playing that and like, oh, that's dope. And you'd see like models for like 90 seconds. He's like, hi, this is what I painted, and then the video would be over, and you'd be like, man, that shit is dope. I will watch this all day long. Like that's the kind of YouTube I want to watch, right? Don't get me wrong. There's some great large channels out there. Like I said, Dr. Faust, probably my favorite large channel. Also love Miniac. I also love Scott, the Miniature Maniac, because that's an example of a really high polished channel, well researched. He goes into he goes into tests comparing different kinds of paints, different techniques. Like that shit, that dude's a freaking, he is a maniac, man. That guy's a badass, right? I love channels like that. But when it comes down to it, though, I really just like hobbyist channels. I want to hear about people's days, like want to hear people like, my dog is sick and I'm painting. Like I want to, I want to hear that because that's the human element. That's what connects you to these hobbyists. Is like, yeah, they painted dope shit, but there's also a human element to it too. Like, uh, you know, they were sick for the past couple of days or something, or uh, they didn't like the last Star Wars. Like I want to hear stuff like that. It's cool. Um, but yeah, that's why I like celebrating the smaller channels, especially when smaller channels get a little bit of the spotlight and they get recognition. I like that quite a bit. It's one of my favorite things about that Idic Beer group is that like smaller channels they celebrate like 150 subscribers. I'm like, yeah, that is a big deal, dude. Man, that's great. It's freaking awesome. You know, um, so good for them. Anyways, I was possibly gonna be able to. Oh, War Boss Tay was dope. Gotta love War Boss Tay, man. We'll find him. He'll come back one day. We'll find him. We gotta just drag him out. He's in hiding. Um, but yeah, I gotta get up in like 6 hours or whatever. My mother-in-law's coming over and make breakfast, and I gotta focus on the positive, right? I got I got my two little boys are gonna wake up. They got a lot of cool presents. My son, I gave my son his because my family, a lot of Catholic families. I'm not Catholic. I'm what you call culturally Catholic. I was raised around Catholic tradition, but not necessarily Catholic. Um, we celebrate Christmas Eve. We celebrate, the presents are opened Christmas Eve, preferably right after midnight. Now, my boys are asleep, so they're not going to have this tradition, at least for now. Um, but I did let my my son get his first present, which is I got him a new tablet and I preloaded his favorite games on it. So he was excited about that. He's playing Minecraft, and no, he's not playing Minecraft on a public server, so we're totally safe. But he's learning how to play Minecraft, and he got stuck and all this stuff, and then I ended up putting Minecraft on my phone. I'm like, okay, I better learn this game so I can help my son. So now I'm playing Minecraft on my phone to teach my son how to play Minecraft on his tablet. But anyways, super excited about tomorrow. Well, mixed bag, I will get over it, but I will paint more of these guys and we'll finish them up. And hopefully we'll get some God tier on the channel soon. It's a fun game. It's not, I would say Guild Ball still